So yeah, when I spoke to Benton, he was saying, he wants something, pretty short and sweet, just to get a little bit about you and about the project that you installed at Feed. So to start, I will have you introduce yourself and give me your elevator pitch as to a little bit about who you are, what you do.
Okay. My name's David Fodel. I am an electronic media artist and basically just have been for most of my adult life. Um, I typically, I think, approach my work from kind of a formalist perspective. I pay attention to the media and the process. I guess in terms of what excites me about it is generating patterns and recognizing patterns and using technology to sort of eke out patterns either from the natural environment or from human interaction or whatever that might be. I think there's sort of a magic and a beauty in patterns.
Mhm.
So I think that's essentially what it boils down to.
So when you saw the building that Feed is in downtown Erie, were you immediately drawn then to the glass blocks, or were there other parts of the building that you kind of these patterns started emerging?
Yeah, well, so initially, like before I even left Lafayette in Colorado, where I'm from, Benton and I had been talking a little bit about what, he had been here for the Lafayette Electronic Arts Festival. He and his musical partner, Griffin Rue, performed as part of the festival. And while he was here, he saw some of my work, and there was a piece that was a fixed media piece. It was a video work he liked that, and then once he got back to Fee, and he said, "Oh, you should come out and check it out. There's all sorts of crazy stuff going on. It's all in flux, but could be fun." So like, okay, well, we can talk about that. I don't know, and but then when he got there, he sent me this photo, and he's like, they just tore out the elevator, and so there's this giant empty elevator shaft. And I was like, oh, I want to do something in the elevator shaft because I had been working with these computer controlled lighting kind of elements and again with the patterns and getting these things with objects in the light path. And I thought the elevator shaft would be super cool. So when I got there, that was actually the first thing I started working on the first day or two, playing around inside of that elevator shaft and getting sort of a prototype set up. We had some concerns about safety with the flashing lights, and there's a stairwell in that same area. They're like, well, we'll keep fiddling around with it, and we were sort of trying to figure out ways around that. But then, as I was just kind of wandering through the building, I did notice the glass block, and I've done some work in the past that uses exterior facing windows with various materials that you can put on it. Like I've used semi-transparent mylar. There's also either spray things that you can put on glass that'll help it catch the light of a projector. But I thought, well, I wonder if, there's enough dirt and dust and whatever. And plus the glass block has got two surfaces. There's an interior surface and exterior surface. Maybe it'll catch the light. So we set up a test, and sure enough, that worked. And as soon as I saw that was really gonna project well, I just said, I want to do them all. Do you have enough projectors? So we went digging through his stash of projectors, and because things are in such a state of flux, a lot of construction happening. It was quite an ordeal just to get power to everywhere that power needed to be to, there's 8 projectors that were running that piece, and media players and all this stuff. So there was a fair amount of running around and up and down the stairs trying to make sure that we could get everything hooked up.
Yeah, how big is that area exactly?
I think that each of the width of those sort of long corridors, you know, because you've been in the space where those brick walls are. I think between each, I think it's 23 feet. And so that would be 69, 70 feet all the way across. But then it was on 2 floors. So basically there were the 3 windows on the second floor, and then actually it's 3 floors, and then 3 windows across what they call the third floor, and then the third floor mezzanine. So there were a total of really 9 windows, although one of the windows was kind of combined into one taller window. So yeah, it's 70 feet, maybe, probably
That's
wider
pretty
if you consider
massive.
the yeah, it was a
Um,
lot of territory. It was fun.
and so when you see it from the outside, it almost, because of the blocks, it almost looks a little bit like pixel art or something along those lines because of those
Yeah, it
square
does break it
shapes.
up a little bit into it almost causes it to kind of read as a lower resolution image, which really contributed to the material that I wanted to use there, because it did sort of come out of the blue. It was just fortuitous that I had some work that had emerged from a different project based on some software that I had put together that was it was really, it kind of grew out of an audio visual work that used there's a technique that was kind of pioneered by a guy, minimalist composer Steve Reich, back in the early 60s. There was a piece of his called piano phase, where you take multiple lines of the same notes that fall in slowly out of phase with one another, so that the strikings of the same note start to fall out of phase in time with one another. So I had recreated that in this audio visual format, and I thought, oh, this would be really cool here, because it has a musical sense to the visuals, and it's also really high contrast. It was just black and white and very stark lines, and so I thought that that loss of or that degradation in the resolution would actually play well with that particular material.
Mhm. How many projectors did you end up using in total then to get that whole space then lit up?
Yeah, so the on the second floor there were 3 projectors spread across the 3 windows, but I also had a box that allows you to send a single signal into it and then split it across multiple projectors. So that shows up as just like one big version of the image across 3 projectors on floor number 2. And then upstairs, there were 5 windows. So there were 5 projectors up there. And those each had um, individual media players playing back the same material, but in sort of going along with that out of phase idea. Each of those, they start at slightly different times when they loop, so those images start to fall out of phase with one another as well. So I really like that piece of it as well. So the total was 8 projectors and 6 media players to accomplish that. The one tall window. So like I mentioned, there's this mezzanine. There's the third floor and then a third floor mezzanine, and the windows almost look like they're the same, but they're actually on 2 floors. Except on the one side, it's a single window. So I turned the projector on its side so that it was the aspect ratio matched that window rather than having 2 projectors there.
Oh yeah, yeah, I can see that having to just sort of format it to fit best,
Yeah, to
cover
fit
that,
that window because it was tall rather than wide.
right. Um, so yeah, what were some of your impressions then too of coming to Erie and seeing what is going on at Feed, kind of being an outsider looking in
Yeah.
at what our community's doing?
The feed space itself was, in a very raw kind of place, but um, it's gorgeous. It's fantastic. The potential there, multiple floors. Benton has, kind of the vision for the place. What had really impressed me about the way that he's approaching it is, typically you see these kind of rehab type projects, construction projects in general, really, where they just put paper up on the window and say, "Yeah, coming soon," So like, oh boy, I wonder what this is going to be. But what he's done is, he's actually, as he's been able to get the doors open and even just do stuff, as with the liquid light thing, getting stuff happening in there and getting excitement around town. And I think it seems to be working. And I was happy to help contribute to that, because I think having those big windows lit up, we got some attention for that, and I was really happy to be able to do that for Feed. And then in general, I think Benton took me around to some different places to see the way that the artist community is kind of taking over some of these buildings and turning them into these creative spaces, and that creative community. There was a real positive vibe of everyone that I met. I wasn't there very long, but it seemed super cool. It seemed like everybody was like you would expect in a thriving urban, creative environment. It always seems to kind of go that way, where the artists take over these spaces and make all this cool stuff happen. Things grow out of that. What's encouraging to me is to see that the artists they're buying the spaces, as opposed to just like, oh, I can get in here and get a space for cheap, like to rent, and then gentrification eventually drives those same people out. But it seems to me that people are far enough along to be able to make the investment in those buildings and turn them into these creative things and actually build something solid there. So I was quite impressed.
Yeah. And I think it's, really cool. I know initially when you went in, the elevator shaft was the thing that you were gonna first do something in, but I feel like having the face of that building lit up really drew attention from just the street level. I think a lot of times when people are walking down, especially State Street in Erie, and there's some buildings that need a lot of love, like you don't always
Yeah.
look up, you don't even notice some of those old features on the building. And since you did your installation, I mean, now it's like you can really see the full face of that building, and it really, in my mind, was a very, I don't know, really cool way to take something that's really old, and Benton's trying to preserve, and as much as he can, the building's integrity historically, but then with this like newer technology, kind of the future, and just adding like some of that I don't know, just like value to the street. It's free in a sense that, if you're walking down the street, you can enjoy this piece of artwork, from pretty much anywhere in that
Yeah.
area. So
Yeah. Yeah, I
uh,
think so too. It felt to me that it was kind of a transitional sort of moment, transformational kind of moment to see that building light up. Like you said, that there have been a lot of things down at street level showing that something's going on there, but I think the scale of it was really cool. And Benton has relayed to me some of the comments that he's getting from people. So yeah, I'm very thankful I had the opportunity, and excited for the future of the space. I hope to be able to come back out and continue doing whatever makes sense out there. It's a real gem of a community, and it's a very wonderful space to be able to have been part of.
well, thank you very much, and thank you for putting your flair into our city. We're really excited for whenever you come back again. You're always welcome. And thank
Thank
you
you.
for taking the time today to talk a little bit about this project. And then where can people go to check out more of your work or keep tabs on what you have
You
going
can
on?
you can go to my website. It's just davidfodel.com. Spelled just like my name will be on the bottom of this, I
I think so,
guess.
yes.
Yeah, so I try to keep that updated with new projects and with a bunch of stuff that is from the archives. And yeah, thanks again for the conversation. Good to talk to you.
Yes, you as well.